Hey guys, welcome to Hair History of the 18th century. Oh, the 18th century. This is probably the most memorable era when it comes to hairdressing in the history of mankind. Never before in history and never afterwards have we seen such extravagance in hairdressing. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves and start at the beginning of the 18th century, where we actually see something strange happening. Now, if you remember from last week, the end of the 17th century was pretty close to the extravagance of the 18th century, or this. You had your tours, your towers of curls and hair, wigs, hairpieces, everything. But at the beginning of the 18th century, there's actually a little dip in flamboyancy, which is greatly reduced before it flies through the roof. Probably due to the Renaissance and the renewed interest in the classical era, women started to dress their hair like the ancient Greeks. Curled hairstyles, kind of flat hair pulled back with your twists and ribbons and everything. And that was worn all throughout the first half of the 18th century. And it's only after 1760 that we get into this bigger, biggest mentality of hair. So it all started when men started wearing wigs. Men started to shave their hair or cut it very short and wear those typical white wigs with the curls on the sides, poofed and little braids in the back. And men were more concerned with their looks than they were before anyway. And with this newfound vanity of men, of course the women couldn't stay behind. So they started wearing wigs as well and hairpieces and just again expanding the size of their hair. Now, not everybody was wearing wigs, but we'll get to that later. This new rise in wearing huge complicated hairstyles meant the rise of the hairdresser. Hairdressers were incredibly popular and they were very sought after. It became a very popular profession in the 18th century, where there were almost none in the 17th. Some high-standing ladies would even have two of their personal hairdressers, one for every day and one for parties and special occasions when they wanted to look extra good. And hairdressers would train the maids of ladies to do their hairstyles, and he also just had lots and lots of salons and wig studios. Now, with this newfound interest in hairdressing also came new printed guides on how to dress hair, and I actually followed one of these in making this hairstyle. But there are lots of printed written guides on how you should properly dress the hair and what to do and what not to do in 18th century hairdressing. So in this century, once again, you see quite a lot of freedom. Women were doing pretty much whatever they wanted with their hair, just as long as it was huge. Pretty much the only rule was to have your hair big and pointed upwards. That was the most important. But what truly dictated fashion were the ladies at the French court. The French court dictated not only fashion in hair, but makeup and clothing as well for pretty much all of Europe, and everybody followed the fashions of the French court. So when something new happened there, people tried to imitate it. And this is how it happened that women, after a while, started to prefer using their own hair for these huge hairstyles, after the fashion of Marie Antoinette, who actually didn't like wearing wigs. Now, of course, the most iconic look, I'd say, is the white hair. But actually, white hair was pretty much reserved for men, or it was more popular for men to wear. And ladies' wigs would have been pink or purple, pastel colors, or a natural hair color. And the most popular natural hair color, surprisingly, was black. We have seen a lot of centuries now where blonde was the beauty ideal and women would lighten their hair, but in the 18th century they switched to black and women would actually dye their hair dark. Now, by the end of the century, when the flamboyancy and extravagance of the hair reaches its absolute peak, we get the most crazy scenes on hair. Hair would have been adorned, well, the most popular adornments for hair for everyday wear were feathers and pearls. These are quite basic items, or I'd say basic, because sometimes on parties, special events at the court, ladies would wear insane things in their hair. They would wear allegorical scenes or scenes from operas, garden scenes, or miniatures of Paris, or a sheep and a shepherd. Pretty much anything was possible. And I've even heard that some ladies sought after a moving solar system for their hair. Honestly, you name it and they've done it. Now, at the very end of the 18th century, of course, there is one giant thing going on, and that is the French Revolution. And that also means the end of the extravagant hairdressing. Of course, nobility and royalty wasn't cool anymore, so they didn't dictate fashion as strongly anymore as they used to. And in England, actually, hair powder was taxed. so it simply became too expensive to use in everyday life. Now what actually happened is women of the nobility in France would cut their hair short, and this was done in sympathy to the victims of the French Revolution, where of course a lot of nobles were executed under the guillotine. As the French ladies cut their hair short, other people followed. They actually very quickly grew tired of having short hair and started to wear long wigs again, but we'll get into that next week in the next century. First, I want to show you how to do this hairstyle. I actually did not use any hairpieces, any wigs. This is all my own hair with the use of one little cushion, which was very customary back then. Before I start, like I mentioned, I used this guide on 18th century hairstyling, and I tried to do this as authentically as possible. Few changes that I did make. First of all, my hair is not cut properly for this hairstyle. It should be much shorter in the front. My hair is way too long for this. And also, I did not use a proper pomade, which would have been used back then. They were very fond of their pomades and powders. You would often get as many as 6 or 7 layers of pomade and powder on one strand of hair. I didn't use a pomade, I used a simple modern hairspray. Instead of the fancy stone powders, I used simple kitchen flour. I am a disgrace of modern hairdressing, but that's okay. So that being said, let's jump into the tutorial. I am going to part my hair about 2 inches away from my face. And I'm going to start by clipping away these front pieces. And then I'm going to divide out approximately the same thickness of hair on the back of my head, again following my hairline. And then I'm going to clip all of my hair up for now. So it is time for my first coat of powder. So I'm going to start by combing my hair through, and then I'm going to spray it with a load of hairspray. Now originally I would have coated it in pomade, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to use hairspray. And then go over it with a generous coating of powder. Repeat the same process. And when I've done that to all of the strands, I am going to start curling these. So the bottom hair I'm going to curl just in one large curl with a medium-sized curling iron. When the curl is done, I'm going to pin it up to cool down and maintain its shape. And the front hair I'm going to curl in 4 kind of smaller curls. So then I'm going to divide my hair in half again. And I'm going to start with the top half, and this I'm going to divide in a couple of sections again. I'm going to go for about 4, and each of these sections is going to get powdered and then frizzed, and by frizzed I mean teased like crazy. So again, hairspray, powder, and then I'm going to take a comb and back comb this like there's no tomorrow. So I'm going to do this to all these pieces in the front, and then I'm going to turn around and just leave the front hanging for now. So in the back I'm going to divide my hair into 2 sections again, and with the bottom section I am going to make a braid. Oh, don't forget to powder the hair, of course. Pomade and powder. And then I'm going to braid this in a normal English braid, and when that's done I'm going to fluff it out to make it nice and big and wide. And just pin the end with some bobby pins for now. So then I'm going back to the top half of the bottom half of my hair, and this is going to get powdered, pomaded and frizzed. And this time I am teasing it from the front. Always tease in a way that the outside of your hair is left smooth, or semi-smooth. Okay, now all the hair that needs frizzing is frizzed, so I am going to make my little cushion. Cushions were used to bump up the hair, give it more volume, give it the height that it needs. So I'm going to take a few socks, roll them up, stick them inside each other, roll them up again, just make a nice bunch of socks. And I'm going to pin this down to my hair just by sticking a bobby pin through the fabric and attaching it to my hair. And then I'm going to dress all of my frizzed hair over this sock cushion. Now there are several ways in which you can pin your hair to the cushion. I went for this kind of heart shape, so I'm making 2 kind of curls that go inwards so that the top of my hair is folded in. I like this style. So I'm going to turn around and pin down my braid, and I'm going to frizz the tail of my braid. And again, pin it down to the top of my hair. So then I'm going to let down my curls, and I'm also going to frizz these a little bit. Top curls, I'm going to tease those a little bit higher and pin them up at the top, just on top of my cushion. And I'm going to make sure to dress the ends nicely into two little curls on top of my head. So when the hairstyle is done, I'm going to go over with one more coat of pomade, aka hairspray, and powder, and then the hairstyle is completely done. Now all there's left to do is add some adornments. So I went for a little silk scarf that I just pinned down with a artificial rose. So I'm going for a little bit of a garden theme here. And that is your 18th century hairstyle done. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I sure enjoyed making it. If you did enjoy watching this, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for more hair tutorials. And thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next week in the next episode of Hair History. Bye!